I just kind of wanted to get you on to see if we could talk a little bit about planning some hunts in this uncertain world that we're facing, where we don't know if we're going to be under government lockdown. We don't know if we're going to have to be, punk rock, social, civil disobedience fans, or what we're going to have to do to go hunting here. What are you feeling for this fall?
Well, this is a weird one because I don't have any guided hunts planned. I rarely do guided hunts because I'm a do-it-yourself guy. But I have friends who have guided hunts planned who they don't know what to do. Some are being canceled, some are being put on hold. And there is among outfitters, it's all over the map as far as how to handle this. You look at a guy that does brown bear hunts and he's booked out 2 or 3 years. What does he do? And it's not like he can just reschedule somebody in another slot. So I think that's a unique situation there because we've never seen anything like this before, where literally worldwide hunts are being canceled or they're being on hold. And even if they were to be offered, like in Africa, for instance, you may not be able to get there because you're going to have to be taking plane rides through different cities, different countries. And I think it's a huge amount of uncertainty for a lot of guys who don't know what to do. For the guys in this country who their guided hunts are canceled or whatever, I have a feeling that there's going to be a big explosion of people into wherever they can hunt over the counter, because they're going to wait till the last minute. They're going to see if we don't have a big spike and they put us all under house arrest again. We're going to see things are going to open up, and guys are going to be like, well, I couldn't go on to my Manitoba hunt. I couldn't go here, couldn't go to Alberta, couldn't go to Alaska. I'm going to go to Colorado or Idaho or wherever they have over-the-counter elk hunts. And Nebraska deer hunting, September 1st, all of their licenses might sell out just because people have a deer hunting opportunity.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the international travel is a big maybe, and I think the African safari business is going to get smoked. I think some of the outfitters up in Canada are for sure going to get smoked over this, and I think the opportunities in the States, at least in the lower 48, I think they're going to stay pretty consistent. But I also do think you're right. I think a lot of people are going to sit back and go, I don't know what to do this fall. And they're going to hit a point this summer when, Colorado starts selling their over-the-counter tags, or Idaho, like you said, and they're going to go, I got to go do something, and I can drive to Colorado. I can drive to Idaho. I'm going to go do that. And so I think you're right. I think we're going to see a lot of people out there hunting elk in a couple different states this year, more than we already usually do.
Oh yeah, and people are withdrawing their applications in the states that haven't drawn yet where they can. People are turning tags back in already who have drawn. This is going to be something we've never seen before, and the only thing we know is how much we don't know.
Yep.
It's just going to have to adapt on the fly because we don't know what's going to happen. There could still be a 14-day quarantine if we see a spike at the end of the summer. And what does that mean? Well, hunters are the ultimate self-quarantiners. This is what we do, is we self-quarantine, and I don't know if they're going to enforce it. I don't know what they're going to do. My Nebraska turkey hunt got canceled, as you know, because they shut off non-residents. Wyoming, I'm going to draw Wyoming elk this year for general, and I'm expecting that they'll be lifted because Wyoming is a pretty low risk state, and we could shut off their pot sales down here if they shut off our hunting. So we could make it punitive if we wanted to, but this is going to be a year where everybody kind of feels their way through and makes last minute decisions. I have a feeling.
Yeah, this has been a weird one, obviously on so many levels. But I tried to explain this to my mother-in-law recently about why people in Michigan and some other states were protesting, and I was like, you have to understand. They sit there and they say, oh, you can't go fishing in a boat with a motor, but we're going to make it easier for you to go buy alcohol or marijuana. Like the message they're sending is so disconnected, and it just seems such a dismissal of common sense in some of these states, and everybody's just looking for that equilibrium. Like, you and I know when we go elk hunting or turkey hunting, we're pretty low risk for spreading diseases around. We're in the low risk category, but we're not viewed that way, and we don't know how we're going to be viewed. We're viewed as people traveling for non-essential reasons, and we should be shut down. And there's a billion different examples of that. And so you're right. It's kind of like you sit here and go, I sure hope that Wyoming tag comes in. You can do it. You sure hope you can go do some of these hunts, but it's just not. There's nothing that says this is a for sure thing now, and this is new territory for us.
Well, it is, and frankly, state game and fish and DNR departments, they can't afford to shut off non-residents for a year. They really can't, because it's such a huge chunk of revenue for them, especially a state like Colorado that gets a majority of their funding from non-resident elk. Let's be honest. So I don't think that they can afford to do that. And I think that they'll probably be lobbying the governor by later in the summer that, hey, let's just lift it. Let's let people do this. If we want to keep it in town, that's fine. Make everybody wear a mask. Make them stay 6 feet apart at the pot store. But don't do this, because this is a different thing. And here in Colorado, we've just had some weird, nonsensical rules too. Like, you can only travel 10 miles to go fishing. They want you to go recreate. Go out, do it, go hiking, go fishing, go doing whatever you want to do, but you can only go 10 miles. And, what happens if you go 15? Are you going to suddenly infect an entire new city that's never seen it before? And my mountain place is 50 miles from my house, and I go back and forth from there. And when I'm down here in town, the only thing I do is I go to the grocery store, and I'm a good little soldier. I wear my little mask, and I go to the grocery and maybe to the hardware store, and then I go back up and go fishing. And our leaders in our community up there suggested that everybody who fishes wear a mask. And that's like one of my friends he's somewhat he's kind of wry sense of humor. He said, when you see somebody driving with a mask on and they're all by themselves, it's a sure sign of a double-digit IQ.
That could be applied to somebody driving a boat down the river through the reservoir too. If they've got a mask on and there's nobody with them, that's probably not the place you need to be masked up.
No, but I have seen people up at our area trout fishing all by themselves wearing their mask. So they're being good soldiers.
Yeah.
And good for them. But at some point, common sense has to kick in too.
Yeah. Well, I think, like you said, we're learning new stuff and we don't know what we don't know. And I mean, just before this, I didn't read it. I just saw a headline pop up on my phone that the CDC came out and said now they think coronavirus can't really be transmitted from surfaces very well. So if you cough on a tabletop, it's not very easy for me to get it. And I'm like, man, we're so far into this now, and we're just finding sort of what seems like kind of elementary stuff about this. So we just don't really know. And the question on that, somebody fishing by themselves and, like you said, being a good soldier, like, hey, I'm all for that. But part of me goes, God, that's dumb. Like, it just doesn't seem to make sense. And like I said a million times before, I write squirrel hunting articles for a living, so don't take freaking medical advice from me, but it just seems pretty wild.
Well, I'm an internet medical expert, so you can take advice from me. I predicted weeks ago that Colorado would revise their death toll way down, which they just did. Yep. And there's so much we don't know about this. I mean, there are doctors and epidemiologists who believe that a whole lot of the transmission is from hands, from touching and then touching your face, rather than getting it from airborne. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I mean, we may never know about this thing because it may go away, or this could be one of those things that's with us forever, and we all just get used to a new way of life.
Yep. Well, that's Rogan had that Dr. Rhonda Patrick on talking about what she knows so far, and she is so smart and so informed on this kind of stuff. And she was talking about, certain Asian populations, there's 20% of them have a genetic predisposition to really being able to fight off this specific kind of virus very well. And so they're finding all this stuff out there that some people are just built to handle it better, just immune wise and everything. And, when you start looking at the numbers and they start parsing out the data, and it starts to seem like you can get actually better data than just, okay, this many people died and we're attributing it to coronavirus. Now you see an overwhelming majority of the people who died from this were in nursing homes. And it just seems like that was the perfect, or that is the perfect breeding ground for this thing to spread quickly and hit people who aren't, they can't fight it off. And so it makes you wonder, like you see these people who have small businesses and who are young and healthy, this was a big sacrifice, and we don't know if it was worth it or not, or what we know now. Maybe it would have been a hell of a lot better off to put our resources to figuring out how not to get it into nursing homes and places where people were way more likely to suffer serious effects from this.
Well, yeah, and I agree. I mean, we could, and this may end up being the end result, is we figure out how to keep people who are at risk protected. Because people who are at risk know they're at risk. We know what the factors are. We know it's obesity, lung issues, respiratory issues, just a general overall declining health. And then let the rest of the public go on and have, I guess it's the question of what is an acceptable death rate from something. We know that the acceptable death rate from the common flu is at least 80,000 a year. It may be way more than that, but we as a society accept and go, okay, that's all right. We're going to keep chugging right along. 80,000 people are going to die. That's the way it is. That's life. Same thing with car wrecks. Same things with a whole lot of other things. Smoking. We don't outlaw cigarettes, and look how many people die as a result of that.
Yep.
So at some point, we're going to have to balance our economy, and we haven't talked about the economic effects of this, but that I think the economic effect is going to be giant for hunters, because we spend a lot of money, and a lot of people don't have a lot of money right now. They're not working. Their businesses are being shut down. They don't even know if they're going to reopen. And how does somebody justify to their wife even that I want to go on a do-it-yourself over-the-counter hunt in Colorado? Honey, I think I can do it for $2,500 with gas and food and license and all of that. And she's sitting there looking at the bank account saying, maybe not.
Yep. Yeah, that's going to be, that's something I'm glad you brought that up, because we kind of focus on, are we going to have these opportunities available? And we probably will, but at least to a certain extent, maybe not the international stuff like we talked about, but how many hunting companies survive? How many people out there are going to buy that $650 elk tag or the $500 whitetail tag in Iowa? Well, how many people are going to, we know probably the hardcore people that we hang around with and the hardcore end users, nothing's going to get in their way, but who do we shed? Like who's going to say, nope, I'm not going to do this, because that person's out there. And at what level do we lose those people, and where does that hit us in the future? Because it will.
Oh, it absolutely will. And what was interesting was in Colorado, there was an increase in apps this year across the board for everything. And it was included an increase in non-resident apps.
Yep.
So, but that was back at the beginning of April too. So
yep.
we already knew it was happening. We knew how it was going to hit. I don't think anybody anticipated that this would keep going and going and going, and it may keep going through the summer. I mean, they showed pictures and videos in Boulder of all these young people on Boulder Creek, just swimming and hanging out and drinking and doing what young people do, which of course you and I never did, but
no,
they did. We never did any of those things, but they all were, and they were all close together. Nobody was wearing masks. Nobody was doing anything. And the powers that be are they're abhorred at this. How can this be? How can they be ignoring all this? Don't they know they're putting the whole world at risk? And they may be and maybe not, but we may see a spike this summer.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I kind of think about that. I mean, maybe I just feel differently about it, but when I see, college age or high school age kids doing reckless, stupid stuff and people get crazy about it, I'm like, they're kids. Like, what do you expect? Like they're not, like you don't get mad at a 5-month-old puppy for making a dumb decision. That's what they do.
Oh yeah. Young people do that. And to some degree, we as hunters are pretty independent. We don't like to be told what to do. We're by nature, we tend to be fairly conservative, both, politically, tend to be family oriented and all that. So nobody wants to bring it home to their family. But at the same time, we go out there among the snakes and the ticks like we talked about, and mountain lions, grizzly bears, um, driving to where we're going to hunt and having to avoid 16-year-old girls texting that are stoned, and then that's a danger too. And so we just accept that there's an inherent danger in the kinds of things that we do, but a lot of people don't. A
Yeah.
lot of people just don't see that. They don't understand that. And so they think, and especially people in government, they think, well, hunting is just, that's just something you go and do. So I don't know that we will have, if we see a big spike at the end of the summer, I don't know if there will be sensible decisions made or not.
Yeah.
What's the 14-day quarantine? What is that? If I'm hunting by myself in Wyoming in the snowy range, doesn't that count as quarantine?
Yep.
I would think.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I mean, it's such it feels like such a disjointed effort because every state's different. And, I like state management. I'm okay with that. But you see some states didn't really lock down. Some states locked down hard. Some states got hit really hard. Some states didn't get hardly hit at all. And it just doesn't it feels so like incongruous. Like there's nothing that we can rely on to go, okay, well, opening up's going to do this or keeping closed is going to do this. And we're just kind of like, there's like 50 different experiments going on. And, we're in I guess probably it sounds selfish to like non-hunters, but we're in a weird place because we love to travel to hunt. And so we think about what are the consequences of going across state lines. It's different than, I would guess that a lot of people don't really think about going across state lines a whole lot. I mean, maybe going to Disney World or something like that or going on the vacation, but we're kind of a little bit more in tune to that and a little bit more sensitive to the fact if somebody's like, you can't leave now. And it's like, man, there's something so many times of the year that I want to leave this state to go do that it makes me maybe a little bit too hypersensitive to it almost.
Oh, I think so. And I know among my circle of friends, of hunting friends, which is pretty broad, almost everybody, especially the do-it-yourself guys, are just like, screw it, we're going to go. One way or the other, we're going to go. We're going to figure it out. And I'm sure probably in your circle, it's kind of the same way because this is who we are. This is what we do. This is what I have done ever since before I could drive, and it's my lifestyle. I work out all year round to be able to hunt. I shoot my bow. I study. I scout. And to not be able to go do anything like that for a season, but at the same time look around and say, okay, well, I can't do that, but these people over here can do this. I keep bringing up the whole pot thing as being something that's essential, but I think that's a classic example. Why is marijuana essential? Recreational marijuana. Why are they allowed to keep those stores open, but a little mom and pop sporting goods store has to close down?
Yep.
And it doesn't make any sense. And I'm a states' rights guy. So I like what Trump did, putting it back on the states, saying every state's different. South Dakota is a hell of a lot different than New York and New Jersey. New York and New Jersey, they've got problems, but all those people are crammed in there like a bunch of rats in a cage too. Mm-hmm. Whereas in South Dakota or my part of Colorado, everybody's pretty spread out, and we're seeing a difference in the infection rates, a difference in the death rates, and I like the fact that states can make their own decisions.
Yeah,
I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I am too. And so maybe this is way off topic here, but I was talking to my elk hunting partner yesterday, and we just kind of got onto the topic of being hunters and eating wild game and being out there in the wild and, eating sandwiches with bloody hands and stuff like we sometimes do, like we're a little bit more closer to nature. And I'm going somewhere with this, this is not like a chest thumping thing. This is just like the reality of our biology is we live a little bit closer to nature in a lot of ways, standing in that stream and touching a fish and then touching your face and being a part of that, as opposed to living in a place like New York City where you're a little bit further away from what we came from and how we evolved. I think just that existence is, I'm not knocking it. It just is that way. It's a different lifestyle. And he's like, I wonder if because we do this, we're a little bit better, like biologically prepared, immuno-prepared for this than somebody who lives in a high rise in a really kind of unnatural setting. And I don't know if it's true or not, but it's kind of interesting to think about.
Oh, I think it's a great theory. And because we are that way. Whether our immune system is stronger, well, I don't know. There are a lot of different theories about that because we're generally healthier.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, other than your, some of your southern tree stand hunter guys that are you know who I'm talking about. But generally, most of us are pretty healthy, and we keep ourselves pretty fit. And I think, if it would be really interesting to find out a cross section of hunters, how many have been infected with this, and what kind of survival rate there was, what kind of death rate there was.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have a feeling that among people like you and me, it's probably way lower than the mean.